right, we're on 4.3 lesson 23, and it says I can use division, which we've been doing, dividing, and the associative property to test for factors and observe patterns. So remember, we've been talking about factors, we've been talking about composite and prime numbers. So we're going to look at patterns today. So associative property, you might have remembered this from, third grade, second grade. Associative property is where you can, in a multiplication sentence, so we're talking about multiplying, but you can also do this in addition. So in multiplication, okay, you can switch the numbers around. Okay, I know there's not a lot of space, but so let me show you an example of this so it'll make more sense. Okay, and again, this also works in addition, but we're talking about multiplication today. If I was going to do 3 times 4 times 2. In parentheses, I have 3 times 4, which would be 12, times 2 would be 24. What I can do is I can switch what I want to multiply, and instead of just doing 3 times 4, I can make this 3 times and put 4 times 2 in parentheses. And I can even do 2 times 3. So I can switch the order of my numbers. I would still get 24. 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 would be 24. So it doesn't matter which way you do it in multiplication. You can pick whichever numbers you want to multiply first together. You will still get the same answer. So we're going to use this property or this rule when we go to look at some patterns down below. Okay, so here I have 28 times 7, or 28 equals 7 times blank. So what would be my unknown factor? What would fit in here? So it would be 4, right? 7 times 4. And so how do we know that? Well, if you know your 4 facts, right? Skip counting by 4. I can write them on the side. I know dividing by 28 by 7, I get 4. Is 28 a factor? Is 10 a factor of 28? Does 10 go into 28 evenly? No. Okay, how do you know that? Well, if you do your 10 facts, you know it goes 10, 20, 30, and by the time we get to 30, we're already way too big. So how can I find out if I wanted, what if I wanted 3 as a factor? Can 3 go into 28? Maybe I don't know off the top of my head if 3 can go into 28. But what I can do is I can divide and see if 3 can fit into that number. Okay, so that's how we find out if something is a factor, is just by dividing. So let's say I have a different one. Let's say if I'm doing 54 divided by 3, and I want to know if 3 fits into this number. I want to know if 3 is a factor. So the one way I can do it is just to do long division and see if 3 fits in here evenly. If I don't get a remainder, then 3 is a factor. If I do get a remainder, then 3 is not a factor. 3 goes into 5 one time. I get 3 minus 2, and I bring down my 4. Now how many times does 3 fit into 24? I count it by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24. So it goes in evenly 8 times. So I get minus 0. So is 3 a factor of 54? It is, because I have no remainder right here. So that shows that that is a factor. 3 is a factor of 54. Okay, let's go to our next problem, and we'll look at some factors of 54. So on here, we're going to try to figure out what numbers can go into 54. Whoops, sorry, I just dropped my cup. So let's start with the number. Let's see if, well, we know 1 can go into 54, so 1 times 54 equals 54, right? That's always a number that we can do. Can 2 go into 54? Oops, sorry. Can 2 go into 54? Well, 54 is even, so we know 2 can go in there. So if you cut it in half, does anyone know what the answer for that one would be? we get 27 equals 54. So I'm just listing all my factors right here. So one factor I want to see is I'm going to go up and see if 3 can go into 54. Well, we did that on the last one, and we said 3 can go into 54 18 times. Okay, my next number would be 4. Can 4 go into 54? We haven't done this one yet, so we're going to divide. So 4 goes into 5 one time. 4 times 1 is 4, minus I get 1, bring down my 4 for 14. 4 goes into 14. 4, 8, 12, 16. Oh, it doesn't go, it only fits in 3 times, just 12, minus 2. So this one I get a remainder. So 4 is not going to be a factor of 54. Okay. Can 6 go into 54? And 6 can go into 54. And if you know your facts, it goes in 9 times. Okay? So we're going to use the associative property to show how we know that 9 fits in here without even doing long division or without even knowing our 6 facts. So if I do 54 equals 9 times 6, what I can do here is I can break these apart into smaller factors that I know. So I can change this into 9 times and take this 6 and change it into just easy numbers I know like 2 and 3. Right? 2 times 3 makes 6. I'm just spreading it out even more. Using the associative property, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 9 and I'm going to multiply it by my 3 to start. So if I do that, 9 times 3, what's 9 times 3? It equals 27 times 2. And if we look all the way over here, that's that fact that we got when we cut it in half. Right? So that's one way we can use the associative property to break it down and see what other factors that we have in a number. So let's try the same thing with the number 42. Okay, what if I told you 42 is 6 times 7, right? What I can do here, same thing, is I'm going to take my 6 and I'm going to change it into 2 times 3. Some smaller numbers. I'm going to use the associative property and I'm going to change this into 2 times 3 times 7. Okay, I'm trying to get that 2 by itself and this together. So 42, I'm going to solve what's in parentheses first, which is 3 times 7 equals 21 times 2. So now I know that 2 is a factor of 42, 21 is a factor of 42, 7 is a factor of 22, so I can kind of make a tree of all the numbers that go into 42. All right, we're going to do one more example of 72. So 72, using associative property, and we're going to take 2 big numbers that go into 72. Which is 6 and 12. I'm trying to think of the biggest 12 facts that I know. Again, I'm going to take my 6 and I'm going to separate it into that 2 and 3 that we've been doing. So I'm just going to change it into 2 multiplication numbers instead of just 1. Okay, I'm going to take my 72 and I'm going to do my associative property. Instead of doing 2 times 3, I'm going to lump it with my 3 times 12. Just switching where my parentheses are. So 72 is going to be 2 times and 3 times 12. If you know your 12 facts is going to be 36. So now I know that 2 is a factor of 72, 36 is, 3 is, 12 is, 6 is. So I'm getting a bunch of different factors of 72. So we're going to work on this again tomorrow. And we'll be doing it in our small groups. So I'll see everyone tomorrow.